Hey, welcome back to the Positive Podcast. Glad you're tuning in. Coming to you live from the world headquarters, your host, Jeremy Todd. Now, my guest today, we were just talking about the weather this time of year, and I'm going to bring Sherry Johnson on here in just a second. But, it's interesting. Like, I always get prepared for this time of year. I like mentally, I know it's coming. I see it. I feel it more than anything because it gets cold and I can't stand the cold. But doggone, every time it gets here, I'm just not mentally ready. And what I would encourage you to do, and all the people out there listening around the world, is, and I always give little tips to start the podcast, is book in your days. Now, booking in my days helps tremendously about how I start off in the morning. What I do, I turn my car into a classroom. I listen to motivational podcasts, and I listen to motivational things at the end of the day. And that is a great way for people like myself that are struggling this time of year. So just a quick tip. Now, today, I'm really, really excited to have Sherry Johnson on the show. Now, you may ask why. Sherry, one of the things with the show, and I found this out a while ago. Now, I have a Facebook page that, I think we've got close to 14,000 people on it. But what's interesting about that page is I believe 68 or 69% of the people on there are women. And I have women guests on here from time. I don't have enough, but it's a big portion of my viewership, and I need to get more women on there. And I love the quote as well: being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And for me, as a dude, 43 years old, the topic we're going to talk about today is going to be fascinating. So, first of all, Sherry Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. Sherry Johnson is a menopause health coach now, and she has to talk about this, and we're going to bring this in. I'm going to ask her why. But as women age and experience the transition of menopause, they should not shrink away, but become empowered about the future of their health and mindset so they can age gracefully and powerfully. Sherry, why are you a menopause health coach?
Well, so I did, a career switch probably about a year and a half ago. Prior to this, I actually owned a wine store here in New York City and just needed to create something that really kind of filled me up a little bit more. And I discovered the world of health coaching. And once I graduated from school for that, I really started to think, okay, well, who can I be in service of? And I know for myself, I'm 57 right now. And years ago when I did go through menopause, I just remember all the feelings I had, all the lack of resources that I felt weren't available. And I just never wanted another woman to have that loneliness of going through something that every woman goes through. It's very, very natural. And yet nobody seems comfortable talking about it.
I couldn't agree more. And obviously I'm a guy, so this isn't something I'm going to go through it myself personally. But what would you say? Because I wanted to, and again, maybe I'm way wet on this, but I would assume that you would probably agree with this, that as a man, I'm 43 years old. Obviously I'm not getting any younger, I'm getting older, but what can a man my age, or in 50s or whatever the case is, when they're around a woman that is going through menopause, how can we support? Because I think it's like you said, there's not a lot of resources out there for men or women. And I don't know if it's a taboo topic. I don't know. I've never had the conversation with anybody. And when I saw the opportunity to talk to you about it, I just wanted to bring it to the forefront and have these conversations of things that I think about. Like, what do I say? Like, how do I relate? What do I do in these situations? So what would you recommend to a man that is going through menopause with a woman?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So, and first of all, you're right. Culturally, especially in Western culture, we're not conditioned to talk about menopause, feel comfortable around the word, feel comfortable about what is happening to a woman's body when she's going through this transition. It's definitely different in more Eastern countries where it's actually celebrated and just a normal part of life. And what's fascinating is even here in Western culture, our doctors are so undereducated on the subject of menopause. They did a study several years ago and they found out that OBGYN residents had just really like a couple of hours training in menopause. So as a man, so many women, when we do turn to our doctors for help, They're doling out sleeping pills, antidepressants, telling us to suck it up, telling us it's all in our head. And I think if, as a man, you truly want to be supportive of that woman, do all the opposite of that, right? Understand that what's happening to her isn't in her head. She isn't going crazy. This isn't something that she's becoming this drama queen, wanting attention. She just wants to be understood. She just wants you to acknowledge the fact that what she's going through isn't made up in her head, that the symptoms she feels, they're real, they're at times confusing, they're at times for her, she doesn't understand what's happening. And I think if you can just be there and give her that space and that love and that support, I think if so many women had that, it would be a much easier journey for women to go through.
Yeah, and I can understand that completely. One of your things you mentioned, and I'm curious about this. You talked about when typically a woman goes to OB/GYN doctor, they're prescribing medicine right away. Holistically, like I'm not a big medicine taker for anything. I don't take, and again, I know the people out there that do it. I'm not trying to say that's a bad thing. No judging, but that's not for me. I try and take zero medications for absolutely everything. But you mentioned the holistic approach as well. What are some of the things a woman going through menopause right now can do non-medically to make these things, to make menopause just a little bit easier to go through?
Well, first of all, I think we're kindred spirits because I don't even have aspirin in my apartment. So yes, I'm very and anti-pharmaceutical, but you know what, shoot, if I'm in a car accident, hook me up.
Yeah, totally.
I think for women, really, there's so much that is within our control. And I think just starting to know that starts that empowerment of being able to be in control of our own health and our own outcomes of our health. And so there's really a couple of things that really will make the transition of menopause so much easier. First of all, very obvious, but our food choices. And, most of us know at this point, eating, a whole food, plant-based diet is really best for all of us. And we're all bio individuals. So, sometimes it's a matter of trial and error to see, what feels best in our body. But it's also important to realize that there's so many things we need to stay away from. There's in, the food world, there's something called phytoestrogens. These are things that are found in, different soy products, other different plant-based products, and they actually will go ahead and mimic estrogen in the body. And so they'll go ahead and they'll hook up with the estrogen receptors of the cells of the female body. And just as a side note, almost every single cell in a woman's body has an estrogen receptor. So once the estrogen starts to dip, it does affect the entire body. It's not just the sexual reproductive system. So if you can kind of, stay away from any phytoestrogens, that's going to help your natural hormones.
What would that be an example of? Like, what would that be in? Like, talk a little bit more about that.
You know what? Soy is a really big one. What's healthy about soy is when it's fermented. But anything like soy milk or, soy cheese, kind of all those like more processed products that you definitely want to stay away from.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talk about soy and soy milk. Now, again, I'm not a professional, but it's the chemical process that it takes to get the soy milk out of soybeans, soy as well is extremely toxic also. But you hear so many people. That's what's so confusing nowadays. Like you hear so many things about what to eat and what not to eat, how to take care of yourself. But it's funny that you talk about taking care of yourself through diet and through health. And it's like everything that we talk about, whether it be this through COVID, through losing weight, through mental health, anything all boils back down to your diet. Yet we but what we go to what's easy, right? We go to a fast food joint or get the garbage that, that processed foods. It's just terrible for you, and it affects every single part of your body. And I'm glad you pointed that out, especially going through menopause. It's going to make it that much more difficult, and with all the different chemicals that are in there. So it's already hard enough to control day-to-day activity, emotionally and physically and things like that. Then when you add the additional chemicals that are foreign to your body, it not only makes your body try and fight those, and because it's not used to it, but mentally it just makes it that much more of a struggle. I'm curious about meditation now also, because I've talked a lot about meditation in the last few episodes, and it's important to me. Now I've talked about a lot of people lately in my new career. I've switched jobs, and it's a lot more stressful, a lot more things going on. But yeah, what I focus on in my whole mentally to slow everything down is a meditation. And not only that for a job, but you can do that for anything. I think, we all have the answers within our head, and typically we don't slow down enough to allow ourselves to answer the questions that we have deep down. And I think meditation is a great way to do that. Talk a little bit about how meditation can help menopause.
And this was exactly where I was going after we were going to talk about food. The idea of reducing stress, and meditation is such a great way to do this. As women, I think we just are naturally givers, and we're caretakers. And once we're in our 40s and 50s, a lot of times women are sandwiched in between that, caring for elderly parents, as well as still caring for children, and having a career, and all the stresses of life and the pandemic. And meditation will go ahead and, first of all, just give you a moment to just be with yourself, clear your head, lower those stress levels. And what happens is, once you lower those stress levels, your cortisol is going to go down. And the interesting thing about cortisol, which I think we all know is a stress hormone, cortisol and one of the sex hormones, which is progesterone, come from basically the same pregnenolone. So it's coming from the same spot. Now, when the body's producing progesterone and cortisol, if the body is under high stress, the body's objective is to survive. So it's not going to produce the progesterone, because you don't need that to survive. It's going to produce the cortisol. So if women want to help their bodies, holistically balance their hormones, reducing stress is absolutely key.
It's vital, isn't it? I mean, there's so many things that reducing stress and meditating. I mean, they just go hand in hand. Again, this is with everything in life. I mean, I try and meditate at least daily. I don't do it enough, long enough, I believe, but I do it enough to allow myself to at least hit the reset button. But if you're not doing it out there, I would recommend everybody out there spend a little time getting to know yourself, meditating, eating healthier. I promise you'll feel better. When you were talking, I saw this meme today, and I've probably seen it a million times, but for whatever reason, I really remembered it this time. And it was a picture of a guy laying on the side of a cliff with a boulder on his back, and reaching down and grabbing for a woman that was hanging down from this cliff. And there was a snake that was biting her hand halfway down. And it's basically talked about, it was a story, and it talked about that the men don't realize the pain that a woman is going through when there's a snake biting, but yet the woman doesn't want to let go, because obviously she doesn't know why the man won't pull harder.
Mm-hmm.
I know I just butchered that description, but really what it talked about was having communication. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is because we don't talk about these things. So in a relationship, the man doesn't know what to ask, know how to talk. The woman, obviously, and again, I can't speak for a woman because I'm not a woman, but I would assume it's the same thing. Like, why doesn't this guy understand how I feel? And then a man would be like, why doesn't she doesn't understand what I have going on in my life. I'm stressed out too. And I think through menopause, it's an additional time that is probably additional stress for not only the men and the women. And that's what I think is what it's awesome about what you're doing. Being a menopause health coach, I'm sure you can walk some of your clients through that and through some of these stressful situations. What are some of the other things you do for your clients?
So the other thing that is really one of the key points to work on, to help just with stress and with balancing hormones is getting enough sleep. I don't think people realize just how important getting proper sleep really is to our health in general. But again, for menopause, it's really critical. And there's always like a little like kind of fun fact I like to throw out. And it's, we can live longer without food than we can live without sleep.
So true though.
So
So
yeah.
true. You know, I'm that weird dude that, this is totally random and totally weird, but it's mixed. It goes along with our conversation, but I like to go to bed with the sunlight. So this time of year, like literally when it starts getting dark out, I am damn near getting ready for bed. I mean, I go to bed. I am not kidding. I bet tonight I will be in bed no later than 7:30 or 7:45.
Wow.
I mean, I go to bed early when it gets dark, and then I sleep. My alarm is set at 5:45, so I get like a solid like 9 hours, and I am zonked out. And it's interesting because throughout the summer, I get less and less sleep. And I don't know if there's something that has to do with, and I think somewhere deep down into our genes that, you know, if we go back to way back caveman days, like when there was no electricity, that's what you do. Because if it was pitch black, you would just go to bed, and same thing in the summer, you would wake up, but you'd wake up earlier because the sunlight's out. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but I am such a big proponent of sleep. It allows your brain to heal itself. It allows your body to heal itself. People don't get nearly enough sleep. I hear people talk about all the time, hey, I was up till midnight last night and I woke up at 4. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why do you have to wake up at 4 a.m. to go to the gym and work out like a beast for an hour? I can't comprehend that, because your body, with all the chemicals and all the emotions and all the things that your body is going through in a day that we don't even realize because we take it for granted. We don't know who we truly are. We don't even know how our body, like, I think most people are toxic anyways. And so people don't actually know how their bodies are supposed to actually feel. So we take it for granted, right? We're just blowing through all these signs that are right in front of our faces that we don't realize how important they really are unless we slow down and actually think of our bodies more and take care of ourselves. So, I don't really know where I was going with that, but I was talking about the sleep. But I think the sleep's so important. How many hours of sleep do you sleep?
I usually get around 8.5.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah. But I worked on it. I really started to, play detective on what was wreaking havoc with my sleep. And one of the issues women have, again, with menopause is, as our hormones are fluctuating, the way they fluctuate is estrogen goes up and down. Progesterone, when it starts to decline, it's kind of in a steady decline. And then testosterone is also in a fairly steady decline. But what happens is estrogen plays a role with the hypothalamus, which is also where your body temperature gets regulated. And when estrogen dips, it confuses the hypothalamus. It doesn't know where to go with the body temperature. So it's almost like it goes from 0 to 60 to try to regulate itself. So that's when women will, during the day have, hot flashes. If it happens during nighttime, they call it night sweats. And it's so severe that, of course, they don't know why scientifically this happens, but for some reason, there is something in the brain that just makes a woman wake up right before she's going to have a night sweat. So it's not like she can sleep through it. The body just wakes you up and you have to like roll through it. And some women experience it to a point where it's so severe, they have to get up, change their clothes or change the sheets because the bed is just soaking wet. So that right there can be so disruptive to your sleep.
Absolutely.
And then again, it's just that idea that if you are under high stress and your cortisol levels aren't where they should be, and like it sounds like you're very good at honoring your circadian rhythm.
Yeah,
but a lot of people tend to sort of use, lack of sleep and wear it like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Almost like the less sleep they get, somehow that earns them a badge of honor. And, it's kind of that old saying like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead. if you don't get enough sleep, chances are you're going to be there sooner than
Correct. Yeah. I think that's a societal issue with people with their ego. They let their ego get in the way, and then they fall into this narrative of what social media or what people idolize as working your ass off or being, a beast and rise and grind and all this stuff. And I just think that's a horrible way to live life. And I think it's fake. I don't think it's really reality of what your body is. But when we don't know who we are as an individual, we don't know our we don't truly know who we are. We tend to reach out to who do I think looks, quote unquote, looks successful. Oh, that person is, because they're put on social media and they're up at 3 a.m. and they're rising and grinding. And hey, good for them. If they can do that, great for them. But that's not 99% of the people out there. It's a lack of identity and letting the ego take over of who we truly are. And I'm not trying to be hard and be an asshole about it, but I think that has a lot to do with it. It's just we're not comfortable in our own skin. We don't realize, again, who we are. How are we supposed to feel? Because we haven't felt good in 20 years. So how do you know what's right and what's wrong? And then typically we have other ailments that we're taking medicines to try and curtail those extremes. And then we go right back in this vicious circle where we don't know who we are. We're trying to identify with somebody else. And the circle goes on and on and on and on. And I think some of the things that you've talked about today was eating healthier, cleaner diet, meditating. It's not going to happen overnight. Figuring out who we are as an individual. And when things like this come up in your life with menopause, it makes menopause a little bit easier, a little bit more maintainable or manageable. I guess manageable might be the better answer for that. Exactly. A question I had for you, and then we're going to get into John Maxwell's questions, but how do you, and again, this is a total dude question, so sorry if it comes off bad, but how would what are some early signs for women to understand that they're going into menopause? And then how do you know it's over?
Okay, so your early signs, usually the stages of menopause start off with premenopause, but that's really just, younger women, they're still getting, a regular cycle, they're still able to get pregnant. Then usually right around like anywhere from early to mid 40s, you're going to start entering a stage called perimenopause. And so one of the big sort of triggers that a woman might be able to know she's entering perimenopause, this is when the first hormone that's going to start to decline, progesterone, is going to do that steady decline. And what's going to happen is all of a sudden women are going to have irregular periods. Either they're going to get them closer together, further apart, maybe they'll be shorter, maybe they'll be longer. She will probably get absolute wicked PMS. Her sleep is going to suffer because progesterone, in addition to, really being a great pregnancy hormone, it's a very calming hormone. It's what helps women sleep. And so those are sort of those first few triggers that she's going to see. So it's really irregularity in her period, PMS, mood swings, and her sleep is going to start to really suffer.
Okay.
And then after, did you have another question?
No. I was going to ask you then at the end, like, how do you know when it's over?
So then after you go through perimenopause, you hit a point where it's the last day of your last period. Once 12 months has passed, then you are officially into menopause. And for some women, that's when the symptoms start to go away. They're not as severe, but everyone, again, is an individual. So for many women, some of these symptoms continue for years, even after menopause. So it's not a hard and fast rule. Everyone's very individual. Some women breeze through menopause and might have one hot flash and be done with it. And then other women are really, really suffering for many years.
Yeah, that answers my question. And I'm glad you cleared that up as well. Because I know there's going to be people out there listening to this and saying, damn, when's this going to be over? Or what's going on with my body right now? And, being my age, 43, a lot of my friends are this close to this age. Some older, some younger, obviously. But I think that it's important to talk about and be upfront because, again, it is like that big elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. So I'm glad we talked about this. And once again, we're talking to Shari Johnson, menopause health coach. Shari, I mentioned earlier, John Maxwell has a book called Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And I love going over these questions because they're very, they're unique. They're something you don't get asked every day. And I'm super interested to hear your insights. So question number one, well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Question number one is, what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned?
And this is a fairly recent lesson I've learned. I think the greatest lesson I've learned is how important it is to love yourself.
How awesome is that? Why did you just now figure that out?
I don't think for a long time I understood what that meant. And then I think I didn't think it was that important. And then as I've just continued on, my own personal development and just, I went through a divorce a few years ago, and it just, that'll throw you into kind of, a dark place. And all of a sudden I just started to think, if I'm really going to become the person I want to be, in order to do this and to really achieve what my goals are and to really live my life to the fullest, if I don't love myself, none of it's ever going to come to fruition.
That's awesome advice. And it's interesting too, because, I ask people that question all the time, and I've asked, I don't know, hundreds of people on the show about that. And it's like, we always have this one lesson that we've learned. My grandfather told me this story 35 years ago, but if we're truly a student of life, that what is the greatest lesson you've ever learned? There may be multiple great lessons you've learned, and that is the lesson that you've learned recently. That is great as well. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I appreciate sharing how recent that is and some of your struggles, because I think there's, again, it's we're never too old to quit learning and learning about ourselves and trying to figure out who we are. We think that in your early 20s, you'll figure out what do you want to be when you grow up, and life changes so often throughout your life that there's so many other lessons to learn. And I'd honestly say, I think I've said this in the show, probably in the last 4 years, I've really figured out who the hell I was. I mean, I've been all over the map, bounced around, unhappy with who I am, what I look like. I mean, there's some we all got issues, and I've had major issues that I've never really focused on. I wrote a book last year, and that kind of helped me lay out the things in my own head. But, again, I was a year ago, and I was 42, and it's not, it's for people that are 82 that may not have figured out. You still got time. Mm-hmm. And the people that are 22, hey, great, good for you if you figured it out, but this life is different for everybody. And that's what's beautiful about it. Question number two is, what are you learning now?
What am I learning now? Oh, goodness. You know what? I am learning to rewire my money mindset.
Oh, there you go. What does that look like?
So it's a very interesting journey, because so much of our money beliefs are generational. It's, we learned it from our parents, they learned it from their parents, and it goes down and down and down. And yeah, I've just really learned that for me, I thought I had a very good relationship with money. And all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I have a really hard time with the idea of receiving money. Oh, yeah. I'm the one who always wants to pick up the check. I'm always the one but to just, to actually receive money, whether it's, through a gift, through a paycheck, it just always sits a little uncomfortable in my body.
Sure.
So that's what I'm working on, and that's what I'm studying right now.
That's interesting, because I had a conversation with someone today, and I'm going to use numbers that I'm not here to offend anybody anywhere around the world, but it was a younger salesperson, and somehow this one of our customers' income came into play. And he said, boy, oh boy, she makes $52 an hour. Man, I would die to date somebody that makes $52 an hour. That is all the money in the world. And I'm like, again, that's good money, but that's perspective. I mean, that's as a younger salesperson that makes nowhere close to that, they think that's a ton of money. But that, in reality, if you're making millions and millions and millions a year, that's nothing. That's nothing. So it's just all perspective. And when you talk about the money relationship, I thought the same thing. I used to be exactly the same way. And what I've learned recently over the past 3 or 4 years is when money comes in, I just appreciate it and accept it. And I don't look back. I deserve it. I've worked my butt off and I've earned this. Well, no matter where it comes from, I don't even know where it comes from sometimes. Wherever it comes from, I've earned it and I deserve it. So thank you. And I'm going to go out and get more. I'm not an asshole about it. I'm not a jerk. I'm not rude, but this is my money. Let's go. I mean,
now when I receive money, I just say thank you. And then I say more, please.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's a mind shift for sure. And well, boy, a lot of people have never make that shift. You know, it is what it is. But question number 3 for Sherry Johnson. Sherry, how has failure shaped your life?
Oh my goodness. I love a failure so much.
The best.
I think our greatest lessons are in our failures. And I genuinely believe that success is built on a mountain of failures. And just a very quick story. So, prior to my career as a health coach, I did own a wine store here in New York City. And it's very interesting. When I sold it, the men who were involved in the sales, so the new buyer, the landlord, they all thought I failed at owning the wine store. I thought it was a huge success because maybe it wasn't a huge success monetarily, but I had developed such an amazing relationship with the neighborhood. We highlighted local artists. We spun vinyl records. It was a place where it was like a community. People would come and gather and hang out. They just weren't in and out. I thought it was a huge success, but I think, if you're going to look at, the columns of figures, it was probably a failure, but I loved it. And I learned so much.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't put money on that, right? I mean, if you could, how much higher monetarily would that be versus just the X's and O's, I mean, I totally agree with you. Question number 4 is, who do you know that I should know?
Oh my goodness. Who do I know that you should know? Well, I have to say, so I just started dating a guy. He's a photojournalist and he's fascinating. He has been everywhere. He has seen so many things and he just takes amazing, beautiful pictures.
Okay. What's his name?
Timothy Clary.
Timothy, what's up, brother? Hope you're doing well. Hey, shoot me an email, jeremy@jeremytodd.com, and we will talk, my friend. I met a photojournalist a few years ago at a conference that I went to in Chicago. And it was just whatever. I always thought photojournalists and photographers were, I just didn't see it. I mean, it was just a different wiring of my brain. I just didn't see the value in it, being honest. After I watched that gentleman speak and some of the things that he incorporated in his photography and what they meant behind it, it's completely changed my life. I'm blown away with it. And now I've loved going to art museums. I love looking at different things. It just completely opened my mind to a whole different world that is out there that I've been shaded away from for 40 years. And now I'm all in it. I think it's fascinating. And I don't have that. I don't have that brain to create the art. I have the brain to appreciate the art. And I think you need both of those people to make it work. And I'm the appreciator for sure. But
it's a whole different perspective. I've gone places with him. And I've seen a picture and I'm like, I don't understand how you saw this. I was there with you. I didn't see this.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I would love to have a conversation with him at some point. Question number 5 is, what have you read that I should read?
Oh my goodness, there's so many good books. I think one of my favorites right now is the series by Jen Sincero, All the Badass Money, and
Oh yeah,
You Are a Badass. I love all of those.
Yeah, I read her book. You Are a Badass. I started with You Are a Badass at Making Money. I never finished that for some reason. I don't know why, but I don't have that. I think I started an audiobook and then just got sidetracked with another book. But You Are a Badass was one of the best books I've physically read. And it was an easy read. I think I have it over there on my shelf. I have a knack of giving away all my books after I read them. And I never get them back, but that's okay. I love Jen Sincero. I think her books are amazing and they're easy reads. So I would recommend everybody out there to read her books also. I am currently reading Dave Anderson's book. He's a friend of mine. It's called, I'm sure everybody out there listens to know because I've been listening to the audiobook for a month, so I don't need to repeat that again. His books are great. And you know what? Another author I love, and I haven't talked about him enough, Mitch Albom. I absolutely love Mitch Albom's books. I'm looking at The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto over on my desk. Obviously, Tuesdays with Maury, The First Five People You Meet in Heaven. I read his other book, The Next Five People You Meet in Heaven, came out about 8 months ago, and I read that in one day. It was awesome. I love his books, and I love his books that tell stories. And again, I love books that are easy to read because I'm not, say this with all honesty, not trying to self-bash myself. I'm not the brightest guy in the world when it comes to reading. And I need something that's going to keep me entertained. And his books are brilliantly written. They allow me to take a journey, and I love them. Question number 6. We have 2 more questions, and then we're going to get you out of here. Question number 6 is, what have you done that I should do?
Oh, okay. So this is a good one. I did this several years ago. I went dune bashing in Dubai. So you get into one of these 4-wheel drives and they go up and down these dunes, and it is incredible and beautiful and scary. And sometimes you get stuck in the dune and everybody has to hop out and dig out of the dune. And then at the end, there's a beautiful, just kind of oasis that they set up with, wonderful food and drink.
No kidding. What was Dubai like?
Dubai is very interesting. Dubai is almost like a Vegas. Everything is larger than life. The gold leaf is gold leafed, but it is beautiful and friendly, and the food is amazing.
Isn't that wild? Like, I've always heard about Dubai, and like traveling to Dubai is interesting because you see all kinds of things that I don't think they want you to see. But when you get in Dubai, it's like a different world. It's like you said, Vegas, but it's super, super clean. All kinds of money. Like they can't spend their money. Again, no one can spend their money there. So I always thought that'd be interesting to go there. I would love to just gain perspective by going and putting myself in a situation like that and just look around. I think that'd be so awesome. What other places have you been to?
Oh my goodness. So aside from the Middle East, I did live in London for 1.5 years. So I
That's
got
cool.
to hop around Europe a little bit. So Italy and Tuscany, Rome, Venice, which I love. I'm a big Francophile, so Paris and, just the countryside of Paris.
Your favorite place in the world?
It's going to sound so cliche, but Paris.
No kidding.
Yep.
I've never been to
Paris
Paris.
Is always a good idea.
It is?
It is.
You speak French?
Oh, I've tried.
That would be cool. I would love to go to.
Sometimes I stumble around English enough that maybe I should just stick
to the one you know the best. I'm with you there. Question number 7. I think it's number 7. The final question. Shari, how can I add value to you?
Honestly, I think how you can add value to me is, just be, keep doing what you're doing, because boy, being just open and receptive to what I'm doing, just really just helps what is my passion and my heart.
I think what you're doing is so important. I really do. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. When Kahlua reached out to me, she said, Jeremy, I don't know if you'd be interested, but you're the perfect guy for this. I think you'd be totally cool with it. Would you have a menopause coach on your show? I said, well, hell yeah, I would. I mean, of course, that sounds perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So I was super excited because I love having the conversations that no one else wants to have, that I guess not no one wants to have, but they may think it's cliche or it's not, for this show. I don't even know what the answer for that would be, but I love having people that have passion, they're interesting topics, and obviously you're out there trying to help people and change people's lives. Tell everybody around the world where they can find you.
So the best place to find me is you can check out my website, which is happyvibeshealth.com. And for anyone who's interested, I do have a freebie, which is 5 hot flash hacks that you can get at happyvibeshealth.com/free.
Well, like I said, Sherry, I appreciate you jumping on the show. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to everybody out there listening. And if you're listening to the show, reach out to Sherry. I mean, obviously, if you got questions, concerns, I'll have her email address in the show notes as well. So check her out. I also have the website down there. So check that out. Reach out to her, ask questions. Hey, like always, if I can be any help, I don't know what the hell I would help in this situation, but I'm still here to help. Jeremy at jeremytodd.com. Don't forget to leave those 5-star reviews over at iTunes. Allows other people to find the show. Run over to YouTube, like that. I've got 220 people on YouTube. I tell you what, I don't know why it's so hard to get YouTube subscribers. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But one of these days, we're going to get to 1,000 subscribers. I need you out there listening. You go to YouTube, subscribe to me, and leave those reviews there as well. I say it in every single episode. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. You've got greatness within. Like always, this is the positive side.